Now, before you ask, yes, I'll be upfront and honest and say that the only reason I'm making this video is because I wanted to use this thumbnail. Ever since the Montreal Canadiens posted this picture of one Juraj Slafkovsky of him wearing the Oppenheimer-style goggles, and ever since the Canadiens themselves made the Eclipse image with Slafkovsky in it, I was like, oh, that's too good. That is way too good. I have to try my own hand at this. So big shout out over to the Montreal Canadiens social media for giving me the inspiration for this thumbnail. But I will say, I didn't make this thumbnail about the Eclipse. I made it about our boy J. Robert, baby, the guy who killed all the Japanese people. But veering away from the destroyer of worlds, what I wanted to talk about was a destroyer of the hockey world, because when it comes to Juraj Slafkovsky, Montreal Canadiens' first overall pick, there were a few extra things posted about the Eclipse that actually relate to Slafkovsky and his overall profile. Before we go over that, let's just talk about the profile. Slafkovsky is still as much of Slafkovsky as he has been this season. 6'3", 238, left-handed left wing, signed till the end of 2024-2025 on his ELC. And his recent stints have been pretty fantastic. 9 points in his last 10 games, 4 points in his last 5, and he had that crazy long point streak that extended from the start of March pretty much up until recently, where he did not score himself a point against the Carolina Hurricanes. He then followed that up with another 3-game point streak wherein he scored 4 points before getting 0 points against the New York Rangers on Sunday. Slafkovsky this season is all the way up there at a total of 45 points in 77 games played, a 48-point pace over a full 82, but that doesn't tell the entire story. The Habitant had this really good tweet from a few days ago talking about how Juraj Slafkovsky's point production pace on the date of April 6, 2024 went as follows. 14 points in his last 13 games, so that's an 88-point pace, 28 points in his last 31 games, which was a 74-point pace, 33 points in his last 41 games, which was a 66-point pace, and 43 points in his last 61 games, which is a total of 58 points of a pace. Long story short, he's been at over a 60-point pace for 80% of the season, most of it as a 19-year-old. 60 points is the ceiling that many people had for him in his draft year. And attached is a graph of Juraj Slafkovsky's point production in the NHL comparative to Mikko Rantanen, who was at the same age range. And you can see that from the green line that is displayed on the screen here, Slafkovsky is outscoring Rants. And the thing is, Rantanen is a 50-goal, 100-point caliber guy. He did that last year. So if this is the ceiling, I'd think there's a lot to be excited for. And I think this chart in itself just goes to show you how fantastic Slafkovsky's development has been, because Slafkovsky from this point of the season is completely different from Slafkovsky of, let's say, 6 months ago. It's even further beyond different than the Slafkovsky that we had seen 1 year ago. And 2 years ago, when Slafkovsky was draft eligible, I don't know if anybody really could have predicted this. Sure, he had a really great showing at the Olympics and the World Championships, and he was a good player for TPS and the League of Playoffs, but everything else that we had seen out of Slafkovsky in 2022 wasn't really indicative of, oh, this guy's gonna be like in the same Mikko Rantanen point production pace conversation. And if Slafkovsky ends up actually building himself up to that point, then hey, Destroyer of Worlds, I think that's a pretty fair target to go out there and achieve. One of the top power forwards in the NHL? Okay, sign me up. Let's go back over to the Eclipse, because I did say that the Montreal Canadiens had some Eclipse-based content published on their website. Take a look at this article published the other day, Canadiens' Bests and Records Eclipsed During This Season. Of course, it's a gimmick that they posted yesterday because of the solar eclipse. But all eyes, wearing proper protection of course, will be pointed at the moon and the sun from southern parts of the island of Montreal on Monday. But the city stars have also earned a look of late. Hockey stars, that is. For Juraj Slafkovsky, as rare as far occurrences go, it's the Hab who's had the shortest wait for Monday's event, by virtue of his young age, who outshone the largest standing mark on this list. Juraj Slafkovsky eclipsed the team record for most points by a teenager in a single season just days shy of becoming ineligible for the honor on his 20th birthday. On March 26 against the Colorado Avalanche, the then 19-year-old Slafkovsky registered an assist on Nick Suzuki's goal to record his 40th point of the season and best the previous mark of 39, set by a teenage Mario Tremblay in 1974-1975. En route to the franchise record, Slafkovsky also became the first teenager in team history to go on a 9-game point streak, while on a personal note, he enjoyed his first career 3-point outing against the Anaheim Ducks on February 13th. There are a few extra interesting things that are talked about in this article. They talk about Nick Suzuki, Caulfield Matheson, and a few other names as well. But this is the record that I wanted to talk about the most. The fact that Juraj Slafkovsky has cemented himself as one of the GOAT teenagers the Canadiens have ever had. And I think it's really weird that I said it like that. Yeah, no, disregard that. I'm sorry for making y'all feel uncomfortable. But Juraj Slafkovsky, as a 19-year-old player, legitimately had one of the best seasons we have seen in a Canadian sweater ever. And it gets even crazier when you talk about some of the other players in the NHL who have exhibited similar styles over the years. Take a look at this other tweet made by the Habitant. This was from earlier last week. Here are the Draft Plus 2 point totals of some notable power forwards over the years. Mikko Rantanen in his Draft Plus 2 season had 38 points in 75 games. Timo Meier had 36 points in 81 games. Tage Thompson had 9 points in 41 games. Landeskog had 17 points in 36 games. Shane Doan had 12 points in 63 games. Marian Hossa had 30 points in 60 games. Joe Thornton had 41 points in 81 games. And Jarome Iginla had 50 points in 82 games. Slafkovsky currently has 45 in 77, on pace for about 48. So already, he's besting out most of the guys on this list, save for Jarome Iginla or two. That is a pretty good name to be one shy behind, but all the other guys here that are top-of-the-line NHL players and legends also deserve their time in the spotlight too. Joe Thornton is one of the best passers of all time, Marian Hossa was one of the best power forwards of the modern era, Shane Doan was an absolute tank, Landeskog is the captain of the Avs, Tage Thompson was a near 50-goal, 100-point guy last season, Timo Meier is, when he is at his best, fantastic, and Mikko Rantanen also has his resume as well. Lots of good, talented names on this list that Juraj Slafkovsky is beating or has already beat. And it's interesting because Slafkovsky doesn't necessarily play the same style as most of these guys. Like, oh, Tage Thompson is the big guy, really, really big guy, who can dominate you physically and just absolutely unleash bombs on goal with a one-timer. Marian Hossa plays with incredible pace, and he's always flying down the wing and sniping goals 5-hole. Jarome Iginla was a bit smaller, but he still played a physical style. He was aggressive as all heck when he didn't have the puck. Joe Thornton, one of the best passers of all time. None of these players, I'd say, fit the mold of what a Juraj Slafkovsky is. Rantanen may be the closest comparison, but I still think there's a little bit more finesse that Rantanen has in comparison to Slafkovsky. Everything that Slav does, especially when he doesn't have the puck, is just so proper now. He's great at retrieving pucks along the boards, he makes good passes, he makes brilliant reads once in a while, like the no-look behind-the-back pass through the slot to Nick Suzuki the other night. Fantastic, pristine stuff. Dare I say, it's almost like if you took some of the better parts of a lot of these power forward players on the list and put them together, just at a bit of a discount. Like, okay, Joe Thornton, the passing and the vision ability there. Maybe Slafkovsky is not going to be a Joe Thornton getting 90 assists in a season, but if he has a highlight reel pass once every few weeks or so, then I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to compare. If he's got the physicality of, let's say, a Tage Thompson, where he's able to show guys that, yeah, I'm 6'3" and 238 pounds, you're not going to take the puck off of me, then that seems like a pretty good thing and skill to have as well. Not to mention the goal scoring and everything else. Sure, you could say it's been lacking a little bit, but still, Slafkovsky producing what is 16 goals in 77 games played, that's totally fine for a guy who's 19/20 for most of the season. So with Juraj Slafkovsky going out there and breaking some of these records and putting himself amongst the list of top power forwards of NHL history, Let me know your thoughts in the comments as to whether or not he could be the destroyer of worlds. I'm running out of things to talk about in regards to Juraj Slafkovsky and pop culture. We had already made the Demon Slayer video. We talked about his breathing techniques. We had talked about the Slafkovsky Titan from Attack on Titan and how he's a physical specimen that's tough to shove off the puck. And we talked about Dune and the Part 2 and the record that he broke. Now it's Oppenheimer. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about all the pop culture references that we're putting in there with the Slafkovsky videos, as well as the legitimately good play that he's exhibited. The comment section is your floor. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.